Good morning. Welcome again to Morning Devotions as we simply walk through the Bible together in one year. This again is one of those days where it's really hard to decide what passage. The New Testament passage is so beautiful with the truths about the difference between Jesus and his body, that Joseph of Arimathea asked for his body. Pilate gave the body to him. When you stand at a funeral, that body is not the person, it's just the body. They've already left the body. Something to remember. The fact that the centurion had to go and check whether Jesus was dead or not, and we know when we put it together with the other Gospels, they pierced his side with a spear. This is an actual spearhead from a Roman spear from the time of Jesus. This is a Roman spearhead. This type of spearhead is what would have pierced Jesus' side. So we could talk about that for a while today. But instead, let me return to a really fun passage back in the book of Proverbs. Everybody say, pretend. Yeah, just think of that word for a minute, pretend. Look with me in Proverbs chapter 13, verse 7. One man pretends to be rich, yet has nothing. Another pretends to be poor, yet has great wealth. Then you look over here to Proverbs chapter 12, verse 9. Better to be a nobody and yet have a servant than pretend to be a somebody and have no food. I look at a great deal of Western living today, and I look at a great deal of churches in the West, and I look at a great deal of families in the West, and they talk about their debt crisis. It's really not a debt crisis, it's a pretending crisis. I sat down with a man one day, and he got into my car, and he said, "David, why do you drive this old car?" And I said, "Well, I like my car." He said, "But you believe in prosperity. You should drive a new car." So I looked at him and I said, "Now, what kind of car do you drive?" And he told me all of his very expensive cars, and his cars were worth $500,000. And then I asked him a question. I said, "How much money do you owe on all those cars?" "Almost 100%. "How much money do you owe on your house?" "Almost 100%. "How much money do you owe on your credit cards?" "Almost 100%. And I said, "So you wear gold watches, you wear $4,000 suits, you drive Mercedes-Benzes, and you don't own any of it." I said, "I have an old car, my clothes may not be fancy, but everything I have is mine." Now, who's pretending to be rich and who's really rich? If you run net worth, I was far more prosperous than him. If you look at his appearance, he's far more prosperous than me. Which one's pretending? Now, brothers and sisters, I really want to challenge you as the Philippines begins to prosper. Don't make the mistake that so many of our relatives in the West have made. And as a church, we don't want to make the mistakes that so many churches in the West have made. We don't want to get ourselves out there trying to be something that we're not. We don't want to pretend to be a somebody and have no food. We don't want to pretend to be rich and have nothing. And neither do we want to pretend to be poor. At some point in life, we just have to learn to be happy being who we are. You've often heard me say, you can only be successful by being yourself. You can't be successful trying to pretend to be somebody else. You can only be successful being yourself. So stop thinking that you have to wear a expensive barong so that you fit with this group of people. Wear what you have, and if they don't like you, that's their problem. Quit trying to think that you have to wear certain designer pants or certain designer shoes so that you fit with the in crowd. Well, why do you want to pretend if that's not you? Why don't you just be who you are in Jesus' name?